What is up, everyone? Boshi here, back at it in Raid Shadow Legends, and we have a Halloween fusion event coming up next week, so let's talk about it. Alright guys, so the Halloween event will be going live next week Thursday on the 28th, which is a week away from right now. Now, this is going to be a fragment style fusion, which means it's going to be a lot easier of a fusion rather than the traditional one where you have to gather a lot of champions, level them, ascend them, and all that type of stuff. So I definitely would say keep this one in mind because you might actually be able to participate and finish this event without really thinking you can. Now, the only other thing I want to mention before we go ahead and jump into the champion in the kit is the fact that I think this champion is going to be worth going for just for the sole fact that he is a Void legendary. Now, we haven't had a legendary Void champion as a fusion event for a very long time. I think the last one was Tormund and Sir Nick, and I wasn't even playing this game when that happened, so I definitely recommend you looking into this event just because of that. But yeah, like usual, I will go ahead and throw the model up on the screen along with the skills as I go through them, and I'll give you my opinion on the champion itself. But yeah, let's go ahead and jump right into the champion. Alright guys, so the champion's name is going to be Vlad the Nightborn, and visual wise he is definitely on point for the Halloween theme, so hats off to Polarium for that one. Now, he is going to be an attack-based champion from the Undead Horde. Not like the Undead Horde needed any more legendaries, but it is what it is, and he is going to be the Void Affinity. Now, on the A1, we have Thirsting Blade. Attack one enemy, decreases the target's max HP by 30% of the damage inflicted, and then also heals this champion by 30% of the damage inflicted. Now, when it comes down to the decreased max HP, it's just not a relevant enough thing right now in the game. Now, obviously you could use him on Scarab King and he could definitely help as he has the default on his A1 to decrease the max HP rather than having to build him in a destroy set, but other than that, max HP decrease is just not a big thing in the game right now. Now, when it comes down to him healing for 30% of the damage inflicted, I think this is a great thing, especially on an A1, just because of the fact that he is going to be an attack-based champion, so automatically makes him squishy, and this will allow for a little bit of self-sustain. So on the A2, we have Exsanguinate. Attacks all enemies, has a 75% chance of placing a leech debuff for 2 turns, and then also has a 75% chance of stealing 50% of the target's stealing 50% of the turn meter from champions from the Bannerlord, Sacred Order, or High Elf factions, and then has a 75% chance of decreasing the turn meter by 50% instead against targets not from those factions. And this is going to be on a 4-turn cooldown. So right off the bat, I do think that this will go down to a 3-turn cooldown, along with making all those 75% chances all the way up to 100. Now, when we are looking at this ability, the 100% chance to land a leech, I always like the leech debuff. I know it's a debuff that not a lot of people like, but I like the fact that it allows for self-sustain for everyone on your team when you land it, so I do like that portion of the ability. It is an AoE ability, which is also nice. Now, the second part where you can steal the turn meter from certain factions, obviously this does take a huge hit in PvE content just because you never can really set this up too much. Now, in PvP content, this could be really huge. For things like Bannerlord, you have Sethalia, you have Raglan, Sacred Order, you have stuff like Cardial, and then of course High Elves, you have Lysandra and Arbiters. So stealing those turn meters can definitely be a big thing, and then otherwise you're going to be decreasing turn meter, which is still big because it's still 50% decrease in turn meter, so that's really big right there. Overall, this ability is a really cool one. AoE leech along with turn meter manipulation, and I do, like I said, think this will go down to a 3-turn cooldown, so honestly a very solid ability. And obviously, and before I go on to the next ability, even though the Bannerlord, Sacred Order, and High Elf faction thing can be, obviously it's meant for PvP, this could actually become a big thing on certain Doom Tower waves. If you already know that you're going against some things, he can actually play a big role there as well. Now, on the A3, we have Mind Shroud. Attack one enemy 2 times. The first hit has a 75% chance of placing a big decreased defense debuff for 2 turns. The second hit has a 75% chance of placing a block active skill debuff for 2 turns. And then if both debuffs are placed, you place a perfect veil buff on this champion for 2 turns as well. And this is going to be on a 4-turn cooldown. So right off the bat, again, I think this is going to be a 3-turn cooldown ability once booked. And I do think the 75% chances will go up to 100%. Now, when looking at the actual ability itself, the big decreased defense is always a nice thing, even if it is a single target ability. Now, when it comes down to the block active skill, this is really only going to be related to maybe faction crypts or maybe even PvP. Block active skill for one champion, you can just focus on the one that you're having the most trouble with and whatnot. But when it comes down to PvE content, it doesn't matter too much, especially when you're doing a single target block active skill. But yeah. But overall, not a bad ability, especially if it goes down to a 3-turn cooldown. You're getting that big drop defense. You're getting a perfect veil to protect yourself. And the block active skill is always, I guess, a extra type of a debuff to have, which is nice. And then we have his passive, Notorious, which is place a revive on death buff on this champion for 2 turns every time this champion kills an enemy. So this is kind of nice. Every time you kill someone, you're going to pretty much give yourself a buffer if they attack. If when the opponent goes, you might die, but you'll get that revive on death. And then has the second part of also fully heals this champion and fills their turn meter by 50% every time they kill an enemy. But you have to actually have Constantine the Dayborn on the same team. So we don't know anything about this Constantine, I'm going to call him Constantine the Dayborn. Obviously he's going to be released with Vlad the Nightborn, but in order to get that second part of his passive, you're definitely going to have the Dayborn on your team as well. But just alone by getting the revive on death buff when killing an enemy is definitely a nice touch. Now, having Dayborn will just make this passive extremely good, especially in stuff like PvP and whatnot. But yeah, so overall his kit brings an AoE leech, he heals himself, some turn meter manipulation along with a big decreased defense, and just a lot of self-sustain and protection. So overall, I do think he's worth going for just looking at his kit. And like I said, he is a void legendary, so there's nothing wrong with that at all. But yeah, I would definitely like to see what Constantine the Dayborn looks like, because he could be a very interesting addition to Vlad the Nightborn. But yeah, like I said, overall, I think he is going to be worth it just because of the fact that he's a legendary void. But even looking at his kit, I think he can help out in a lot of places with his self-sustain. The turn meter manipulation can definitely help on things like Doom Tower waves, Spider, Dungeon waves, and he's going to be an attack-based champion, which means his multiplier should be pretty decent. So yeah, overall, definitely worth going for, in my opinion. Definitely at least take a look at trying to get this champion, guys. I think he's really going to be worth it. So that's it, all I have, and I will talk to you guys later. See ya.